Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. We're back with another reel in the bag project, and this one has come to us from Travis. Travis sent me two reels. He sent me a Tidewater 30L, which had a broken line guide, and you can watch the video. I'm going to be posting that soon. And then he also included a 310, which he got started with and had some trouble putting back together again. And he asked me if I couldn't do the reassembly while I was doing the other work for him, and I'd be happy to do that. Now, I have the full service regimens on the 310 available in my library, but from time to time I just like to show the assembly side of this, because a lot of folks do wind up caught and coming to YouTube because they started a project and all of a sudden they kind of got stuck along the lines and they're looking for how to get unstuck. And this is one of those that Travis had asked about, and I'll be happy to do that. So if you get stuck on a project, then I would recommend leaving me a note in my comment section, and I'll take that note, I'll take a look and see if I can't walk you through the process. But if you really get, to use an old term, flummoxed, and you're just beside yourself in terms of where you were, where you went wrong, and just can't seem to work your way out of it, well, I do provide the service of putting this back together as well. So that's what we've been asked to do here. So I think the left side of the plate is okay, but look at all of this stuff in here, right? We've got pieces and parts all over the place here. Let's see if we can get that bridge off. Got the eccentrics and the pieces. And the first thing you would like to do when you do a reel like this is you want to do an inventory. I thought that maybe this was worked on, but I'm not seeing any grease in the back there, so we'll do a little bit of grease in here. You want to do an inventory of the pieces and the parts. Now, I'm kind of doing that mentally because I know enough about this reel, kind of to be dangerous, if you will. But if you don't know the reel, the first and best thing to do is to go get the schematic and go check the schematic against the reel pieces and parts. And that'll be a good guide to you in terms of the what you need to find in order to complete the installation. So I just greased up the side there. There's nothing going on this side plate here other than the line guide drive, and that line guide drive is moving the piece along, so that wasn't the issue that Travis had sent in. I'm more concerned about the pieces and parts to make up the bridge. Here's your anti-reverse dog. We have the anti-reverse spring. We have our eccentric. One yoke spring. We need two. And let's see what's in the bag. So here's the other spring that he sent me. I guess he knew that he needed another spring. Actually, he's got two new springs. That was... probably thought he had lost both of those. All right, so we have a set of springs. We have the yoke. We have the eccentric. We have the jack and the ferrule. We have the lever for the eccentric. I'm going to guess that we have the eccentric screw, the bridge screws, and the like. So we're in pretty good condition here. So let's go take this challenge and see if we can't give this reel a second chance. I'm going to take all the parts that we have off of there, and I'm going to put them all back. And we'll address these one by one in terms of how to clean these, where they belong in the assembly, and how to get fishing again. First thing that you want to do is you want to work on the side plate, because you can't install the bridges in that if you don't have that eccentric in there. The free spool eccentric is, as you see, it's a stud that rides through the case. It's going to move this stud on here, and that's going to move the free spool jack up and down, which is going to move your yoke with the pinion gear in and out. And as it moves that in and out, that's going to allow for it to detach from the spool. And when it detaches from the spool, that's going to allow the spool to run in free spool mode. And when you're in free spool mode, you do not have the gears turning, and you're able to cast the reel or to drop the line for fishing. So the side plate looks pretty clean. I'm just going to take care of whatever little grease is in here before we go much further. And I'm not sure if Travis did any work on this or not, so we're just going to go back and double check everything as we go along. So there's a ramp here. You can just about see it. There's a ramp here, which means that the spring is going to ride in that ramp. So it's going to ride something like this. And you'll notice that there's a tag end of the spring that's pointed up. So that tag end goes under this eccentric post. I'll put a little bit of grease on that so that it spins easy in the case. And then we're going to insert the spring into the hole on the bottom of the eccentric. That would be right here. We're going to take the tag end of the spring, put it into the corner there, and then we're going to kind of mount the post. Sometimes I'm trying to do it for the camera and it's not as easy as doing it when you don't have the camera there. Okay, so we're going to set it like that, but of course that's not anywhere near where it needs to be, and you always know that because this tag end is not in that little ramp that it needs to be. So if you have the hand strength, you should be able to turn it like that and find it where it sets on an even point. And I'm right between the two. So it's a balancing act that may take a moment. Okay, so now I'm balanced. I'm in the channel, this is pushed through, and when I turn it over I should see the stud where the arm goes. So hold your hand on that now and go ahead and put that stud in. Put the free spool arm. Oh, I just lost that, but I want to put the trim ring on while we do that. Okay, then you can mount your arm, and then I'm going into the basket here. There's only one screw that looks a little bit different from all the others, and I'm thinking that screw belongs in here. And it seems to fit right, so we're going to tighten that screw down. That's the first one we want to do before we do anything else on this reel. So what did we do? We put the eccentric in, we turned the eccentric till we found that balance point. We mounted the trim ring, and we put the free spool release arm on, and now we have a functioning eccentric gear. You can see how that works now with the trip lever. Next up then is the two springs that he had. One new. For the benefit of the reel, we'll put both new ones in. It really doesn't matter, but he bought both of them, so we might as well use both of them here. So if you like this type of video, I'm going to ask you to subscribe. And if you do subscribe, please hit the notification button. That way you'll see the reels that I'm working on, and that'll enable you to choose which ones you want to see. I work on all kinds of reels. This is a saltwater level line reel, but I work on bait casters, I work on spinning reels, vintage reels, all kinds of reels. And generally it all follows the same format where I take the reel apart, try and diagnose a problem, and put that reel back together again. Alright, next up then we have the yoke and the pinion gear. I'm just going to clean these off. There is some greases on here, so let's just get rid of those. I'm just using a very light, it's a 4.0 steel wool. It's almost a polishing steel wool as opposed to an aggressive one that you would use, say, to remove paint or the like. And put a little bit of grease there. Check the pinion gear, make sure all of the teeth are uniform, that they're not broken in any regard. I'm going to set that aside for a moment. The next up piece would be the jack. But I don't want to get too far ahead on this side plate assembly. And the reason for that is there aren't any holdfasts in this one. That's probably where some of the issue came in with this reel, because when you go to assemble, it's kind of a balancing act. So let's take the main gear and its pieces off. Again, I'm assuming that this was not serviced, and so I'm showing you, in addition to how to reassemble, how to do the basic service in this as well. And that includes removing this bridge sleeve. And to do that, there's a pin, which I'm trying to push through right now. It may be off camera. I apologize if it is. But if you use a pick that's smaller than the diameter of that hole, you can push that pin through. And sometimes it doesn't go all the way through, and you need the assist of a pliers. If you use the pliers, do not grip the pin hard, and do not over wrench it, because you don't want to bend that pin and not be able to get it back in. So you remove the shaft, and this is why you remove the shaft. There's a lot of dirt and the like that's under that gear sleeve, so it helps when you do the assembly and do the servicing of this reel to clean that shaft up so that it doesn't jam up later on. There's a big problem with these with the current Jigmaster lines. They tend to rust if you don't take care of them. So by all means, go ahead and do that. Once you did that, go ahead, grab that pin and put that back in. And if you would over wrench this during the disassembly, one of the problems you would have is that the end would have a burr to it, and be pretty hard to get back in. In this case, we should be fine. Now that one came out a little hard. We needed the pliers, so I'm just going to use the tip of the pliers to kind of pull that back in, like that. And you can't leave this pin proud. This pin has to go in so that it is under the score of this line. If you feel it outside that line, it's not set deep enough, and you're not going to be able to get your main gear back on. This one needs just a little bit more work here. I think we got it that time. We got it that time. Okay, we're taking a look now at the main stack. We're going to remove the main stack. We'll remove the hard washer that goes underneath the main gear. We're going to clean that main gear. Check the teeth in it. This is a big main gear, and it's got a lot of drag washers in it. I believe it's got 5. This one has a little bit of dirt in it, so you want to take a hard brush like a toothbrush or some other brush. I put a paper towel under there so that as I pull through, I can wipe the brush off, and that's going to clear the old grease out of the channels of the main gear. Okay, inspect it. Make sure that you don't have any damaged teeth. If you had damaged teeth with this one, unfortunately, you'd have to replace the main gear. There's no easy way to file down or otherwise treat those. All right, we're going to take the grease again. I'm using Penn Precision Real Grease for this. And we're going to put some grease onto the main gear. Now, you don't have to get it in every tooth. It will spread over time with cranking. But make sure you get enough that it's been done right. And we'll put that onto the bridge shaft. As I mentioned, we have a lot of washers in this. We have 5 washers. We have 3 that are round on the metal side and 2 that are eared. And so if you've got your washers out and you're wondering, I'm going to take the washers, use a drag grease. In this case, it's Cal's Universal Drag Grease. I get a question all the time, can you use the regular real grease on it? And the answer is yes. You don't need a drag grease specifically. If you have it, that's fine. It's formulated for fabric, and the whole purpose of drag grease is to keep the drags flexible and lubricated. It has nothing to do with max drag performance or the like. All right, the first one is round. It's called a keyed washer. Second fabric washer goes in, and then the first of the eared washers goes in, like that. And it goes and sits in these channels on both sides of the main gear. We'll do the third one. And I'm using my gloved hand, which keeps the contaminants off of my hand, to spread that grease around. If you got too much grease on there, use a paper towel to take the grease off, the excess. All right, so we put the eared washer in, so the next one up would be a round washer. And again, this is all shown on a schematic. If you were wondering, maybe you've taken your your drag stack apart. You don't know the reel as I kind of know the reel, so go ahead and look at the schematic. It will tell you how to do this as well. The last one up then is the top washer, and it sits like that. And I think something was wrong in that drag stack, because when I opened this up the first time, it wasn't quite as robust as it should be. On top of that drag stack goes the little cap washer or tension washer. And now we're kind of ready to do the install of the bridge and the yoke and the jack assembly. So the first thing we want to do is get the yoke and the jack in. We've already cleaned and we've grease the yoke and the pinion gear. So put those over those two springs and press down. You're going to take the jack with the wide hole side, get that over the stud, and then move that to the narrow side, and that'll hold this part in. Next up then is you're going to be dealing with the anti-reverse. So you want to put a fully threaded screw into the lower hole on the top of what you're looking at here. And interestingly enough, with the 310, if you're wondering what this little thing is over on the side here, this is actually an anti-reverse override. So you can backpedal the reel, you can take the anti-reverse off. Load the bridge now. You want to put the fully threaded screw in the bottom post on the bottom. You want to grab your bridge, start to load that in, kind of straight up. And before you go all the way in with this one, bring your anti-reverse dog in from the side. And make sure that your screw goes through that anti-reverse dog. So I'm just checking for now. So we're good there. And then just align the rest of it so that your studs fall in. Don't worry about the spring for the anti-reverse dog at this point. Snap all of those in to make sure that they are there. And then you'll see the spring is here, and that's where you can go ahead and load the spring in next. So the spring belongs in the slot of that anti-reverse dog, and usually you can just compress that down with a screwdriver and set it in properly. There we go. So we're set there. And now that you see that your spring is in the slot, your screw is on this side, go ahead and give that screw a couple of turns to hold that bridge. I don't recommend tightening it all the way, but we've got it started here. And then I come up on the other side. There's partially threaded screws. There's two of those. They belong where those springs were that we put in. Go ahead and put the top one on the opposing side in, and that'll keep the bridge assembly square. You don't have to load the other two to give it a test. Make sure it's working, which it is. And come on back down, put the fully threaded screw on the bottom of that side. Then we'll go put the fully threaded screw on the other side. And it looks like he's got all the parts here, which is a good thing. He's actually got an extra part because he bought the extra spring. And we're just going to test a couple of the functions before we go fully out. But what you want to do at this point, after you put that last screw in, remember we didn't tighten the bottom one up all the way. So tighten that up and just go one more time in that opposing direction. Make sure that they're all firm. We're giving it a turn. We're making sure everything turns. We're going to go ahead and make sure that our free spool is there, and it is. Now we can come back. We'll take the ferrule and the star adjuster. Go to the outside of that. And I like to assemble these by threading them with my hand as much as I can, because if they're cross-threaded, you're going to have a problem with it. I'm just going to grab this to tighten down the drag. I'm not going to put the handle on yet because it's easier to put the screws on with the everything in place. We're good there. We've done the work on lubricating this side. We haven't greased this shaft on this side. Let's go ahead and do that. I can set the assembly in place now.